Hey everyone, Boone here from PremiumBeat.com. So today I'm going to show you how we can drive our animations with audio in Adobe After Effects. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm inside of Adobe After Effects here. Now this is a pretty simple project. I only have two assets. I have this Illustrator file, which is this musical note graphic, and I have a music clip that I got off of PremiumBeat.com. So what I want to do here is I want this graphic to animate to the beat of my music. So I'm going to select my music clip here. I'm going to press L twice, which is going to bring up our waveform, and let's have a quick listen. Okay, so it's a nice song and it's got these bass hits, and I kind of want this to scale up and maybe change opacity and rotate a little bit as those heavy bass hits hit, and I want it to kind of react as this song plays along. So now I could obviously go through here and use this waveform as a visual reference and add keyframes and manually keyframe everything, but there's a better way. So let's take a look at how we can kind of work smarter and use our audio clip to drive this animation. For step one, I'm going to select my music clip and I'm going to go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, and select Convert Audio to Keyframes. Now after I click this, it's going to generate this audio amplitude, which is essentially a null layer, and if I press the U key, this is going to bring up all of my attributes with keyframes. Now what I want to be sure is I don't shift this clip in relation to the music clip here, because that will throw everything off. But I am going to drag it down and put it just underneath next to my audio, and then I'm going to close my audio here. And what I'm looking at is we have the left channel, the right channel, and both channels. So I'm going to just go ahead and delete the right and left channels, and I just want to work with both channels. So now I have all these keyframes here, but there's nothing going on. I just have these keyframes. So how can I use this? Well, as I said before, I want to use this to kind of drive animations of my scale, my rotation, and my opacity of my graphic. So I'm going to select the graphic layer. I'm going to hit S, then I'm going to hold Shift and hit rotation, R for rotation, and then T for opacity. So now I have these three options here. Now, while I want my audio amplitude attribute here to drive all these animations, I'm going to be making subtle adjustments to each one separately. So I don't want to basically attach them all to this particular attribute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate these for each attribute of my graphic. So I'm going to select both channels. If I hit the return key, that will allow me to rename it. I'm going to name this one Scale, and then I'm going to hit Command or Control D, and I'm going to name this one, well, that opened up the Effect Controls panel. I'm going to rename this one Opacity, and you can see essentially that just opened up the Effects Controls panel. So I can do the same thing up here, and I can hit D to copy this one as well, hit Enter, and I'm going to call this one Rotation. Okay, so I have these three here, and let's just open up each one. So now what I can do is connect these via expressions, and once again, as I always say, don't get scared away. We're going to be using the expression pick whips here. And if you have the latest versions of Adobe After Effects, you'll have property pick whips right here. And if you don't have the property pick whip, you'll need to basically alt click your stopwatch here, and then you'll see under the, let me just go ahead and do it. Then you'll see this pick whip here, which is what you'll be using. I'm going to undo that. And now I'm going to simply connect these. So first we'll do scale. Let's do them one at a time. So I'm going to drag the scale of my music graphic clip and attach it to the slider scale. And now let's just do a quick RAM preview and see what we got going on here. Okay, so the amplitude of my audio here is now driving the scale of my music graphic, but it's not exactly how I want it. It's not scaling up large enough, and it's scaling too small, like it completely disappears in some areas. So let's take a look at how we can edit this. If we look at the slider here and all these keyframes, it would kind of be impossible to go through here and manually adjust these. It wouldn't be impossible, it would just take forever. So let's take a look at a better way. First, I'm going to close the opacity and rotation attributes just to keep things neat. I'm going to select the scale slider, and then I'm going to hit this graph editor button. Now the graph editor allows us to visualize the values in a vertical layout. So here we have the pixel values of our scale, and horizontally we see time. So now it's looking more like a waveform, and we can kind of see what's going on. We can see that these scale ups, where it scales really large here, are where these bass hits are. So now we can quickly visualize this. Now if you're not seeing the same thing, that's because you need to kind of customize how you're viewing the graph. So let me show you a couple of settings that you want to get set up here. You want to turn off show animated properties and show graph editor set, and you want to turn off show expression editor, and make sure you have edit value graph selected, because you can also edit speed graph, and sometimes it will default to edit speed graph. And also I'm going to click show transform box. Now what I can do is I can click and drag and select multiple keyframes right here inside the graph editor. And also what this is going to allow me to do is when I select all those, it gives me this transform box. So now what I'm going to do is simply grab the top here, and I can bring these loud hits up higher. So let's say we want to bring these up. Let me drag the playhead over to 1, and then we'll scale it up so we can kind of see how large. So we want it to scale up to about there. Okay, so now let's take a look what's going on. Okay, it's looking good for the scale, but now I want to bring the lower attributes up a little higher. So I'm going to go down here, select all these, and now I can simply click all of these keyframes and just bring them up. Okay, now let's take a look. Okay, perfect. Now it doesn't scale all the way off the screen. We can still see it. Now we're going to simply do the same thing with the other two attributes. So I'm going to turn the graph editor off. I'm going to open up. I'm going to move rotation up. And then I'm going to open up rotation. And now we're going to connect the rotation of our music clip to the slider here. And now let's see what's happening with this. That's actually already looking pretty good. I might want to even rotate a little bit more. So I'm going to grab these top ones, simply move it up again. And that's looking pretty good. Okay, perfect. So rotation is done. Now I'm going to open up opacity, and we'll go over to opacity, connect it to our slider there. Now let's have a look. Okay, it's way too translucent here. So what I want to do is grab these top ones once again and bring them up. And the reason they're so dark is because you can see right here they're set at like 20. So we need to bring those up to over, right at 100. There we go. And we don't want all the lower ones to completely fade away. So what I'm going to do, grab all these lower ones and bring them up just a tad. And depending on what specifically I want, I can make these completely disappear. But I don't want that. I'm going to bring them up even a little bit higher. In fact, I'm going to grab all these, bring them up. And I can grab the bottom. That's what the beauty of this transform box is. So cool, so helpful. Okay. Okay, I'm actually going to make one more adjustment to this opacity. I'm going to bring everything up, the bass down to maybe around 70. Okay, there. And as a final touch, I'm going to turn on motion blur. There we go. So there you have it. There's our final animation, and now in just a few simple minutes, I've connected the amplitude information of my audio to the various attributes of my graphic. It's now driving my animation, and this is much faster than starting from scratch and manually placing those keyframes in there on those attributes. And now this technique is not only limited to music, it works really great with narration and sound effects. For instance, when used in conjunction with expression controls, you can achieve some really interesting results. You could use sound effects elements to trigger an RGB glitch. You could have an effect ramp up during an audio swell transition, or this could even be used to visualize a voice in a documentary interview. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Be sure to check out PremiumBeat for high quality, royalty-free music and sound effects for all of your media and video projects.